course, as in the introductory remarks was stated, Maturidi and Maturidiyya is very well known in Turkey. I don't know the Bangladesh case, but in Turkey, everybody knows the name Maturidi, but in detail, mostly because of the madrasa system in Ottoman time, mostly the Ash'ari tradition was a dominant factor in the curriculum of madrasa. Maybe we can say that there was a syncretic and eclectic system. Mostly they brought together Ash'ari and Maturidi, but mostly they claim in Turkey, we claim the Ottoman madrasa, they followed the curriculum Maturidi, but indeed, because the scholars, mostly they were invited from Egypt. So, and they were Ash'aris in Istanbul, I mean, during the time of Fatih Sultan Mehmed Fatih. They invited scholars from Mavera Nehir also, but they rejected. Only a few. They came to Turkey, like Ali Kuşçu. But mostly the scholars were from Egypt and they were Ash'ari, so the madrasa system, dominantly the Ash'ari theology was dominant in, now in Republican time in Turkey, still this mentality, the Ash'ari mentality, I will a little bit give the detail what I mean by this mentality. I will explain it through the character analysis of the theological school. So, but in recent decades, we can say 20 or 30 years, in Turkey, scholars started searching, started editing the books of Maturidi and Maturidi scholars, not just Maturidi, you know, Te'wilatul Quran and Kitab al-Tawheed, two magnum opus of Maturidi. They were just newly edited and translated into Turkish, unfortunately. For centuries, we are claiming to follow Maturidi and Maturidi theological system, but in Turkey, we have just recently edited and translated his books. So, and after this translation, many scholars, they started organizing conferences, symposia, colloquium, and similar events in order to understand what Maturidi tried to create, tried to put forward. This is one aspect. This is intellectual aspect of Maturidi thought. And at the same time, there is another aspect in Turkey which we can call and creating a new theological identity. This is, if you like, this is another aspect, but I don't like this kind of discussions actually, because in Turkey, you know, for this laïc system, laicity or secularism, mostly in Turkey, some people are trying to create a compatibility between Maturidi system and this laicity or secular understanding of what's going on. So they try. The name Maturidi comes very moderate because he is underlining some values like reason, free will, etc. And they say, if you support this kind of values, which are the values of 21st century, that means at the same time, you are the man, you are the author of 21st century. So at least in Turkey, there are two main motives that triggered people pushed people to do research on Maturidi. The first group, they are trying to uncover, to discover an intellectual one, like I'm trying to do, like me. What interests me is the intellectual background and how can we get a light from this intellectuality. Like when we go back to the deep of history, philosophically, we go to Greeks, we go to these for Gnostic tendencies, we go this Mavera Ünnehir, Central Asia. And for theological tradition, we go to Basra and Baghdad, or for to Andalus for Ibn Rushd or Ibn Arabi, you know, to feed our horizon, to feed our mind, we go to the history for many reasons, philosophically, historically, theologically, etc. This is the intellectuality, and in the academy, this is the main motive for us. This is understandable. But in Turkey, I wanted you to know that there is another motive that push people to do research on Maturidi. This is the reason why some secular people in Turkey also, they like Maturidi, they support researchers on Maturidi, they welcome all these initiatives. But as I told you, I am not supporting this kind of identity creating initiatives, because this is a way of narrowing, this is a way of blockading the ideas of Maturidi and Maturidi theological schools to do other horizons. So just in Turkey, because if we are talking about identity, this identity is Turkish identity. What we are talking about a huge mind, I mean the Maturidi mind. So in the beginning, I wanted to talk about these two motives. Then who is Maturidi and why Maturidi is important for 21st century, at least from my perspective. I ask this question when we go back to history and when we analyze a scholar. Of course, this could be a historical analysis, just in order to picture the history, what happened there, and in order to understand the phenomenology and this sociology of knowledge. That means we have a knowledge at that time, and in order to understand which sociology, which groups, which historical facts, which political facts created this knowledge. If you go back to the history and just historically analyze this period, this time period, it is sociology of knowledge. But if you try to understand and transfer the mind that created this aura to your own context, which is 21st century, then necessarily we have to ask which contextualization, which terms, which concepts this scholar created, and then we divide the line between, for example, in theology we use mütekaddimun ve müteakhirun in theology system, or in Western philosophy we say this is Cartesian philosophy. That means pre-Cartesians, I mean René Descartes, those who studied ontology before Descartes, and those who studied epistemology after Descartes, cogito. Or you divide the line taking into consideration Immanuel Kant, for example, you say those who put forward ontological and epistemological arguments for the existence of God, and those who follow the ethical line after Kant. So this is also a demarcation in thought line. So let's ask the same question regarding Maturidi. Is Maturidi a name? Deserves such demarcation? In order to give an answer, we have to try to discover whether he created new terms, he created new norms, or this is one aspect of the issue. And the second aspect is that maybe he did not create new concepts, but he reinvented, reconstructed the existing concepts, existing terms. He reformulated and reinterpreted, tried to re-understand the present, the existing terms. So let me all these concepts go beyond the beyond our conference. It requires much more analysis. But let me just remind you some terms created by Maturidi. For example, neshun bil ijtihad. This is very, very important term. He created it. Neshun bil ijtihad. Or neshun bil urf. Neshun bil urf. That means there is another, we discuss, you know, all scholars, they discuss whether the term abrogation, the Quran abrogates the Quran, that, or the Sunnah, the practice of the Prophet, he abrogates the Quran, or vice versa. You know these discussions, you know this debate. But Maturidi, he claims the Sunnah also abrogates the verses, the Quran. In the beginning, it seems contrary to general idea of the Muslim theologians, mutakallimun, because they don't accept that the Sunnah abrogates the Quran. But he underlines the fact that the Quran teaches the Prophet how to solve the problems when he come across. The issue is that what I am quoting is from Maturidi. When he talks about naskh, he underlines this paradigm. The issue is that when you come across with a new issue, a new problem, how can you handle it? How can you solve it? So we can say, there is the Quran, there is the Quran. We can open up the Quran. We can look up in the Quran any verse. This is called Shari'i. This is called Shari'i. That means you have to find references in the Quran, in the Sunnah, in order to solve any problem. But according to Maturidi, he says, we are given initiatives through the Prophet, like Prophet, because God gives the Prophet initiative to undertake, to solve any problem he meets. There is no need to go to the Quran, because the Quran says, وَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. In Ta'wilatul Quran, when Maturidi interprets this verse, he says, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ, that means if you are not in any debate, if you all agree on any point, if you are agree on any solution, you don't have to go to the Quran. You don't have to go to any other references. But if you are not, وَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. That means Quran gives the initiative to the people themselves to solve their problem. So this methodology of solving the issues, solving the problems, started with teaching the same methodology to the Prophet. And Prophet, peace be upon him, he taught the people, his companions, the Sahabi, to the same methodology. When you come across any solution, you try to find it. So in Hanefi tradition, Hanefi fiqh tradition, you know, there are two terms. One is Shari'i, the second is Mashru'. Shari'i means you have to find references from the Quran and from the Sunnah to any solution. If you find a solution, you have to show the references from the Quran. This is Shari'i. But in Mashru', you don't have to go to the Quran or Sunnah, but the solution must be compatible with these two sources. It must not go against these two references, but you don't have to find any reference. This is called Mashru'. So Shari'i and Mashru', is it very understandable that Mashru' context is very wide and you can find much more solutions through your exercising your reason, your intellect to find them. So this methodology is called Naskhun bil Ijtihad by Maturidi. There is Nasikh, but this abrogation is not the abrogation of any verse by some other verse or by Sunnah. The discussion is revolving in al-ijtihad. That means you're exercising your mentality, your mind, and finding a solution. You are doing your best to find a solution. And finally, if you find that is very interesting and very important for Maturidi methodology, the reason why Maturidi is quite different from Ash'ari tradition and from Mu'tazili tradition, the key term here is wisdom, al-hikmah, or you can say this is the illah, the question. When God, you know, we are, as you understand, when we try to analyze a theological school, this is religion and theology. But at the same time, we are trying to base our human capabilities. Like we have reason, we have intellect, we have mind to understand, to interpret them, and to put some norms. So this is your responsibility, and in order to undertake this responsibility, in the beginning, you assume you have this mind because your reason, your intellect is the base of this responsibility. So if you put humankind on the one hand with these capabilities, with these capacities, and you put the revealed text, that means the theological text, the religion on the other, that means we are discussing two different realms in the beginning, two different realms. This is morality and religion. Morality and religion. But my basic idea is that morality, and there is no need to use and between morality, religion. So from Maturidi perspective, morality, there is no need to say and religion. Morality, religion. Because they are almost the same. They are following from the same basic principles. Like, don't kill. don't kill. This is ethical principle. At the same time, this is religious principle. And at the same time, this is reasonable. The principle. So this is not Sharia. This is not Sharia. This is religion. Why? Because this is reasonably argumentated, supported, proved, and no one objects it. Don't kill. Religion commands it. Morality requires it. And your mind proves it. Don't kill. So Maturidi, they say they are all compatible because they have the same source. I mean, divine source. This is ahadiyya, or tawheed, or wahdaniyya, wahda, everything. So this morality, religion, we can equate in Maturidi system. I don't want mostly, not just this morality and religion. I don't want to use and copula, this and, between religion, science. When we say religion and science, that means you are talking about two different entities. When you say morality and religion, it seems you are talking about two different entities. But to my understanding and to the understanding of Maturidi, these are very, very integrated. So there is no need to make a distinction between these two. The issue I have published two main books for Maturidi and several other articles. This is, I just want to show you, I'm not sure whether you know Turkish or not. If you are able to speak Turkish, I can send the PDF form of these books. This is published by Ministry of Culture in Turkey about Maturidi thought. And the second one is also Maturidi. I am trying to understand whether we can discover some elements of enlightenment in Maturidi, some elements of Maturidi. These are not the historical analysis of Maturidi yet. These are the systematic analysis, the methodological analysis of Maturidi thought. The last article of mine, it's about to be published within 2 or 3 weeks, about the character analysis of Maturidi school, character analysis. So I just want to talk about a little bit about this character analysis. Then I will compare this school with others, and why to my understanding, Maturidi school is important for 21st century mind. And if next week on Monday, we have a discussion on Maturidi also from a friend together from Cambridge University. We will discuss the issue whether it is possible to reinvent theology, that means kalamun jadidun, in 21st century. If we need, can we find some methodology first and some terms from Maturidi? I just want to complete some terms you can find in Maturidi I mentioned. As I just remember, I told you, if any scholar could be or considered a founding father of the thought, you have to find in the scholar new conceptualizations like ijtihadun, el-ijtihadu bin neshi, el-ijtihadu bil urf, or let me give you some other terms like velayetun ruhaniyetun, velayetun nefsaniyetun. These are new terms created by Maturidi. This is totally about this sociology. about sociology, about the community. Velayetun ruhaniyetun, that means we are in the community, brothers within that same feeling, the same spirit. Religion created for all. Otherwise, we are not biologically brothers, but we feel brothers. I am in Turkey and you are in Bangladesh. We feel brothers. Why? Biologically, we are not. Everybody knows. Why? Because this is called velayetun ruhaniyetun. The same spirit binds us as brothers. So the second step is coming. If you follow the velaya ruhaniye, then velaya nefsaniye comes. That means this velaya protects every single person in the community. Nefsaniye, that means your nefs, your body with all its capacities, This nefs, sometimes it's mind, sometimes it's property, sometimes it's generation, sometimes that means nefs with all its extensions, okay, not just the body. My thought is the extension of myself. So every extension of the self is protected. This is velayetun nefsaniyetun. Or you can find the term mu'ahede in Maturidi. Mu'ahede, that means social contract. This is very early. You can come to Magna Carta in 1215 to talk about the social contract. Or you can come later on through Jean-Jacques Rousseau to come across with this term. But the mu'ahade in Maturidi, from when he comments on ahit, the issue is that what I learned from Maturidi is that from totally theological terms like ahit, al-ahdu, al-misak, it seems at the outset, it seems this is very theological and religious term, okay? But what I have learned from Maturidi and what is my methodology, I am trying, let me show you one book. This book is Dialectical Encounter, a PhD thesis prepared in Georgetown University by an American author. This PhD is about me, about my methodology. This methodology is called theological anthropology first, and the second part is how to transfer religious terms into secular world, how to reconstruct secular world with theological norms. How can we transfer it? The German scholar Habermas, Jürgen Habermas, now he is alive, about 100. His methodology is the same methodology. Although he is atheist, he invites religious people, and he claims, if you have some functional terms that will enliven, that will flourish the life in secular life, please bring your theological terms into the secular world, and we all benefit from these norms. The same thing I say, because this is the methodology I transferred from Maturidi. He is not behaving these religious terms just as only religious terms. He extends these terms, like from ahit, from misak, a mu'ahede, social contract, from velaye, al-velayetu ruhaniye, al-velaye al-nefsaniye. How can you construct the community? This is not just the relationship between God and you. That means this is a vertical relationship. No, at the same time, it is a horizontal relationship, because the verses of the Quran are not the verses of information. That means they are not just giving you information. At the same time, they demand, they want you to create a performance. This is called performative verses. The verses are not just informative, at the same time, they are performative. That means they create an ethical realm for all, for singularities and for the holistic, the community. So this is the one part I told you. How can we discover new terms, new concepts in Maturidi? And the second one, how he commented, reinvented, reinterpreted the existing terms like Mu'tazili theological system and Ash'ari theological system made use of will, for example, will, human will, and they used also istita'a, qudra, power, and they used reason, human capability as a reason or intellect. But when it is very, very clear, there is no ambiguity, there is no any complexity. You know, the Ash'ari system, when we try to understand, we say this is like Ash'ari system. That means it is very complex. It is not very easy to understand. But when you come to Maturidi system, let me assure you, really, really clear, really understandable, at least because when we want to give the character of thought, Maturidi thought, the first term we have to underline is, as I told in the beginning, it is hikmah, wisdom. You cannot find this term in Ash'ari tradition, wisdom. So if this is directly related, this is directly, hikmah, that means Allahu Hakimun. That means Kayfama yasha, in Ash'ari tradition, God behaves as he wishes, because he has the dominant character over everything. He has everything. That a kind of tamalluk. This theologically, this is very tragic, because in Maturidi system we say theology, but at the same time we bring another character to this theology, like theological anthropology. Theology, at the same time, metaphysics. This is I recommend you to the friends to read the name Gottfried Herder. This is a German philosopher and historian of philosophy, and mostly Muhammad Iqbal refers many times to Herder and Friedrich Nietzsche. That means without Herder, you cannot read, you cannot understand German philosophy and German theology and German literature. Gottfried Herder. And when Herder refers to Islamic theological system, he says, if you have reason as a reference point in a theological system, this theological system is theological, metaphysical, not just theological. Theological, metaphysical. I put a new term and I add, if humankind is very crucial, very important is in this theological system, then this theological system is not just theological, it is theological, anthropological. As I showed you, this PhD thesis is about this, how can we how can we consolidate our position? That means what kind of capacities we have in order to understand, in order to reinterpret and reinvent this system. Because philosophy or theology, it is not religion. It is taught on religion. So when the first please remember the subtitle we are analyzing is that what is the character of Maturidi thought? We can impose it as an identity which is different from others. The first one is the term hikmah. So I can very easily call Maturidi as the philosopher or theologian of hikmah. There is no one else underlining the term hikmah like al-Maturidi. So this is related, this is directly related to the attributes of God also. This is very directly related to the problem, to the issue of evil, theodicy problem also. That means hikmah and morality, ethical system, all accept that, all presupposes that human is responsible for all what is happening. So you divide the system in the beginning into two. The cosmic system, God is responsible, and the ethical system, humankind is responsible. So when we try to resolve the issue of this theodicy issue, that in the beginning there is a mistake. In the beginning we say how to compromise the perfect being of God, that means omnipotent, omniscient, and all good God, but there is some evils. How can we compromise? But when we say there is an morality, there is an ethical system we are responsible for, so the agent, you are the agent. So there is no need to compromise between these two. It is your responsibility. So then in the beginning, when we accept that we have these capabilities, reason, intellect, free will, and the power to create what we will, then there is no need to say that God is responsible or to transfer the responsibility to the divine. So as I told, this hikmah, it contains many things: your reason, your will, your power, all revolves within this hikmah. And this hikmah first discovers two things. As a Hakim, I know I have a nature according to Maturidi. We have a nature which has tendencies. Your nature has a tendency to good and bad. This is the nature of your self, the nature of your fitra, two tendencies. This is your nature. But you have also reason or intellect. Your intellect has only one nature, not two aspects. Your fitra has two aspects. Tendency, it is tending to evil or good. But your reason, it has only one reason. It teaches you only the good, only the wise, only so there is no, if you follow the true, that means I don't want to use this term, because sometimes when we underline the term reason, some people object, and they say, which reason? Is that religious reason or the secular reason? This is not a good division. to my understanding and to Maturidi's understanding, because the true nature of reason, there is just one reason, and this reason has its own principles. But we can ask this question: every single person has this reason, this intellect, but we have different and sometimes contrary conclusions how one true nature, with its true nature, one reason gets different conclusions. The answer is that this is not related to the nature of reason. This is totally related how your reason exercises. That means if you have necessary data, if you have necessary information for your reason to exercise itself, then it gets correct results. Let me just give you one verse from the Quran. This is a methodological verse. وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ وَمَا يَعْقِلُهَا إِلَّا الْعَالِمُونَ. The second part is important for us. وَمَا يَعْقِلُهَا إِلَّا الْعَالِمُونَ. That means in order to your reason exercise correctly, it needs ilm, knowledge. So we cannot say there are different reasons because so they get the different results. This is not correct. If you provide necessary information for every reason, for every intellect, they can get correct results. The issue is that whether we have necessary information, necessary data and knowledge or not. Otherwise, the nature of, according to Maturidi, your fitra can be distorted. So it must be checked by reason. Reason is the final arbiter. Reason is the final one, which will check whether your fitra is commanding you good or bad. So this is not just in Muslim theology. You know, from Galen, this is from Galen, and in Muslim philosophy, Ibn Sina, Farabi, they also discuss this. In Ibn Rushd, you can find which one we have to follow, our fitra, our nature, or our reason. Maturidi is very clear. We have to follow our reason because your nature can be distorted. Why? Because it has this tendency in its nature through good or bad. So the community, this is called epigenetic. Epigenetic. That means we have some channels from the people, like our fathers, like our parents. They feed us. They determine our behavior. They determine our behavior. So, but they can distort your nature, your fitra, not your reason, because the reason has its basic principles to follow, and this is called true reason. The important issue is that, for example, in Maturidi, this is very important. You know, when you come to Immanuel Kant, you will see he divides the reason into two: practical reason and theoretical reason. And in theological realm, not theoretical reason, but practical reason can exercise. And the reason never discusses the existence of God, never discusses the immortality of soul, never discusses whether the world was created eternally or later. The three realms, your reason is not able to discuss. You cannot discuss the existence of God rationally in Kant. You cannot discuss the immortality of soul. He divides this reason into two: practical and theoretical reason. But in theological system of Maturidi, but it is not just in Maturidi, you can find in all other theological system. In Mu'tazila, you can find. Reason has this capability. Reason has the capability of discussing all these issues also and bring arguments, bring evidence for all these realms. So this is also important. When we discuss rationalistic theology, this is just, we can very easily say, this is in Islamic tradition has these kinds. Because in theology, let me remind you some names, for example, from Catholic tradition, and later on from Protestant tradition. There is no place to reason in theology in Protestant tradition. And in the beginning, in these patristic fathers of church, they don't allow philosophy, they don't allow reason to exercise within theology. But in Islamic theological system, without reason, without human capabilities, you can do nothing. So theology deserves the name of theology, really, theology in Islamic tradition. And this is when I am also now trying to finalize my conference, because it is not very easy to give a frame, to give a framework for Maturidi. There is much to talk about, but I just want to make a character analysis. So wisdom, reason, and free will, and kudra, power. This let me just, in order to make the long short, this free will. Just think about it. You know, el-iradatul kulliye ve el-iradatul cüz'iyye. These two categories before Maturidi was invented, and el-iradatul kulliye, it was allocated to God. God has this will, this universal creative will for all, but man has only this particular will. That means during that is spontaneous with the act. If you want to do something, you are given part of this universal will, and you are rendered able, capable, and you do your action. But Maturidi rejected this kind of division, and he claimed man has two will also. One is universal will, universal potential creative will, al-iradatul kulliye, and this particular, that means very specially, spontaneously intended to any particular action. So iradatun kulliyatun ve iradatun cüz'iyetun, these two irade are part of our irade. This is important, and the important demarcation from Ash'ari. What makes me the agent, real agent, is the fact that I choose what to do. That means your will makes you the real agent, not your action, because will precedes action. So in Maturidi tradition, the emphasis was on creating. That means iktisab, kasb, not a real halq. But Maturidi takes from or transfers the emphasis from action, from fi'l to will. That means if you freely choose something, that means you are the creator of this action. The second important point, in Ash'ari tradition, there is only one power in man, only one power. That means you, as you are considered responsible, we have to find a base of this responsibility. And your power is this source. But according to Maturidi, we have also two powers, not just one. The one which is common with Ash'aris, your power that makes you capable doing any action. This is spontaneous at the same time. You and your action, your deed, they are spontaneous, you do it. This is common between Ash'ari and Maturidi. But Maturidi, he claims a second power, a checking power. Checking. This is before this second power. That means humans has a potential power to check the results, the outcomes of what he is intending to do. He is accounting, he is thinking, he is reflecting about everything, and he has this power of thinking, and he has the power of this counting everything. This power is included within will also. So you have to, that is really important, because in theology, this is the first time in Maturidi, he's thinking, he's analyzing what just one power brings to humankind, because we believe God is the real creator of every action. Why we call him real creator? In Kalam, in order to be al-fa'il al-haqiqi, the real fa'il, the real agent, you have to know the possible results of what you are doing. But we are not able to do that. We do it, of course. We know the nature of our action. We know it to some extent, not comprehensively. We are able to comprehend everything it will create. Even we have marriages, okay? We engage a girl or a lady, we get married. Maybe hours later, everything burst, okay? Everything start going wrong, because you didn't see the results. But this is your action. So the question, what makes us the real fa'il, real agent of our action? We have to know all possible results, but we don't know. We are just pretend. This is, but God knows every result. So he is al-fa'il al-haqiqi. But what we are doing, according to Maturidi, is just checking, thinking, reflecting. So this is called very important istita'a al-qudra before undertaking any action. So you can, when we analyze these terms, we can add much more to these terminology. I call it this, you know, at least some of you know the name Paul Ricoeur. In his reflexive philosophy, he created philosophical anthropology, the term, not just philosophical. He combined these two, Paul Ricoeur, philosophical anthropology. That means philosophically, you create a person who is very, very capable of understanding, acting. He has the responsibility. So it is totally an ethical being on earth. He has the responsibility, whole responsibility. Of course, he accepts the open universe. That means we have this interaction with God. Külle yevmin huve fi şe'n. That is okay. God is always in action. That's true. But we have the responsibility of creating an ethical world. So we are given necessary capabilities to undertake that. This is philosophical anthropology. So I claim Maturidi's thought has the same character. It is theological anthropology. That means theologically, humankind is empowered by reason, by hikmah, by analysis, by analyzing everything, taking out the reasons why we have all these outcomes. This is procedural analysis. This is a new methodology. Mostly we discuss the outcomes. In fiqh, for example, Ajma' al-ulama, all these ulama scholars, they created this consensus that this is so, this is so, this is so. Okay, but what kind of methodology, the process you followed and you came to this conclusion? What interests us is not the conclusion. Conclusion may be historical, maybe today is valid, but the methodology is universal because you are exercising your capabilities, you are analyzing the reasons why this process, this analysis brings us to this conclusion. Maybe, you know, تغير الأزمان وتغير الأحكام. If the time changes, the conclusions change also. In order to understand what kind of conclusions were created by this process, we have to go to this process methodology, and I claim Maturidi gives us the elements of this process methodology, and he takes humankind responsible for all these process. I think this analysis gave us a good frame to understand, methodologically, to understand Imam Maturidi and his thought. This is all from me, my friend. If there are questions or any contribution, I'm ready to take.
Jazakallah khair. Ustaz, thank you for your valuable speeches. I think it was our honor, and also we really have learned something new about Imam Maturidi from him today. So, sir, I have some questions, and now I would recite to you, inshallah. The first question is from Brother Hassan Al-Banna, Islamic University, Kushtia, Bangladesh. Thus, we know that Imam Maturidi played the most vital role to curb the clash of thinking between Mu'tazila and Ahl Hadith around 2nd and 3rd Hijri. Also, it is historically proven that the discussion and the thoughts of Imam Maturidi was much useful to humankind, especially when it's about knowledge. Furthermore, his wise thoughts encourages us to unite ourselves. We also know that there is a large number of Hanafi people around the world. Still, we hardly get introduced with his thoughts. We can afford only a few sessions about him, about his thoughts, observations, criticisms. What's the reason behind it? Is there any historical factors which keeps him out of discussion while he is extremely relevant to the contemporary world? Thank you.
Great, great. Good question. Thank you, Hassan. And Hassan al-Banna, that reminds us an historical Egyptian figure, Hassan al-Banna. Good name. There are some political, mostly, you know, the Islamic world. Unfortunately, let me say, unfortunately, the political hegemony dominates Islamic world. That this is the reason in all societies, unfortunately, because the civil society has not developed, the civil mind has not developed in Islamic world. So political agenda is much more dominant than intellectual one. So Maturidi, there is clear division. I published some articles, especially analyzing the term ulul amr, for example, ulul amr. Who are these authorities, ulul amr? And he did not take the political figures, the politicians, the ulul amr, the umara. He makes a clear distinction between umara and ulama, and he considers ulama as the ulul amr, because ulu is not singular, it is plural. Ulu, it is the plural of zu in Arabic, ulu. So ulul amr is, if there is just one ruler, ulu, it cannot be ulu because ulu plural. So he says ulul amr, they are the people who have the knowledge, a guiding knowledge for all. So as I said, I have a special article about ulul amr, and he very clearly make a distinction between diyane, that means religion, and yes, within this book, I have a special chapter. I analyze the three terms in Maturidi, not just, you know, in the past, just religion and state. There was a discussion, a debate on the relationship between state and religion. But I think in Maturidi context, not just state and religion, another category is required to include within this formula in order to make a comprehensive analysis. It is politics. So politics, state, and religion. How Maturidi analyzed these three terms. So politically speaking, he, as a civil scholar, in his lifetime, he never worked with state like Abu Hanifa. So this thought of line, it is very civil. So he is defending human rights, and before rights, he is defending the human dignity first. What in my articles, in my speeches, I am also always defending, underlining the dignity, the karam, the karamna bani Adam, the dignity of humankind as the fifth chain, fifth circle of the chain, like Allah Kerimun, Jibril Kerimun, Al-Qur'anu Kerimun, when Nabiyyu Kerimun, and human is the Kerim, the fifth circle of this chain. Like in the Quran, you can say this karam is used for God, for God's message, for Jibril, for the Prophet, and وَكَرَّمْنَا بَنِي Adam, for humankind. And let me tell you, the state dominates and annihilates many times this dignity. So intellectually, it is wise, it's good to create a distance between you and the state. So very easily we can discover in Maturidi, it's almost 30 pages. I am analyzing this, the relationship between these terms, politics, state, and religion. In order to secure religion, in order to secure human dignity, he creates this gap between state and the initiative. He gives the initiative to scholars, to knowledge. And as it is understood, this kind of conception, it never makes the politicians, the policymakers happy. Why Maturidi tradition is not welcomed by the state authorities, we can understand from this analysis. Unfortunately, this is the case.
Thank you, sir. Now we have a brother. He gonna ask you directly. So I request Brother Shaikul Azam Abrar to open your camera, please, and then ask the question to Ustaz.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'd like to thank the honorable guests and the organizers for organizing such a great discussion. Thank you. And I have 3 questions, if you allow me. And my third question is, historically, some of the scholars of Hadith school of thought, I mean Ahlul Hadith, this is not the La Mazhabi school of thought, I intended the Muhaddithun. Some of the scholars of Muhaddithun, they have actually objected against Kalami school of thought, as the Kalami school of thought is very motivated and inspired from Greek philosophy. So how do you defend this objection from your understanding of Imam Maturidi? Thank you very much for allowing me.
Thank you very much. Let me very shortly try to give the answers to your questions, and let me begin from the last question. This Ahl Hadith ve Ahl Ray, this dichotomy. To tell the truth, this identity, Ahl Hadith, Ahl Ray, it changes historically. Let me, in my last article, I quoted some passages from Abu Shakur as-Salimi. This is Maturidi theologian. I quoted some passages. In Nishabur, which is the center of Ash'ari scholars at that time, he is discussing with Ash'ari scholars on the one hand, and he is discussing with Karami scholars, and he is discussing with Salimi, Abu Shakur as-Salimi in his Tamhid. He is discussing with Shi'i scholars, and that is really interesting. In order to secure the realm of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, he is claiming that Maturidi and Hanefi tradition is real Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and because their understanding of the attribute of Tekween, Ash'ari, because Ash'ari tradition, they don't accept Tekween as the eternal attribute of God, contrary to Maturidi tradition. Because of their idea, this Salimi considers Ash'aris and Karamis infidels. And he says, you cannot be part of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, okay? But today, we don't give any credit to this understanding. Because this is philosophy, this is theology, you can discuss it. This is ikhtilaf. From ikhtilaf, you cannot go to the iftirak. From iftirak, you don't have to go to fitna, okay? So all these chain follows each other. So ikhtilaf is something we have to discuss it. We don't have to impose an identity to the mukhalif opposition. That is really interesting. I edited that to show you a book. This is Tabsuratul Edille fi Usul al-Din, Abul Mu'in al-Nasafi. This is the second greatest name of Maturidi tradition. I edited this book, and Diyanet, in Turkey, Diyanet published this 2 volumes. The first volume was edited by my master, and this is my edition, Tabsuratul Edille fi Usul al-Din. When I edit this book, I came across a reality. It is in Tabsuratul Edille, Abul Mu'in Nasafi is talking about Mu'tazila as the opposition. The opposition. That means they are mukhalif. But later on, those who copied istinsakh, they copied one copy, they copied it, and they changed it, this opposition, into zindak, into kafir, into etc. So they changed it, the authentic form of this of the book. So Ahlul Hadith, Ahlul Ray, there is a methodological distinction between these two. Ahlul Hadith, they claim reason. You cannot use reason in religion. Okay, there are some narrations from Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali. This is a very famous Hanbali scholar. Ibn Rajab, he says, "Ad-dinu riwayatun wal akhbar." Ad-dinu riwaya wal akhbar. Wal ukhra fabul alayha. That means if you are talking about religion is just narrations from that could be the Quran and the Sunnah. There is nothing reason or thinking, intellect, anything human within this corpus. So this is theology. We are thinking, and you know this tradition, ta'wil tradition. So Maturidi knows he is very aware of what he is doing. This is called ta'wil tradition. That is in modern terms, that is hermeneutics. They are just commenting. So that doesn't mean you are replacing religion. No need that. But one verse Maturidi gives very priority to understand the methodology. وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ لَاتَّبَعْتُمُ الشَّيْطَانَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ لَاتَّبَعْتُمُ الشَّيْطَانَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And if not for the favor of Allah upon you and his mercy, you would have followed Satan, except for few. وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ. Maturidi, when you can check from Ta'wilatul Quran, he says, the favor of God, the mercy of God is revelation, and the prophet. If there was no revelation, if there was no prophet, according to this verse, chapter Nisa, verse 83, Nisa 83, وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ وَلَوْلَا. If there is no mercy, if there is no fadl, that means, according to Maturidi, if there is no divine message, if there is no prophet, what would happen? The answer comes, لَاتَّبَعْتُمُ الشَّيْطَانَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Some of you would follow the true path. Some of you. And Maturidi asks, how these some people could find the way, the true path, the basic principles of leading a true life. How could they find it? The answer is that through their reason, because the reason is the equilibrium of God on earth. We have the reason, and this reason is a mercy from God. We didn't invent it. Every part, everybody, every single person, they are given. It is a given. So it is mercy. Because of God's mercy, we are given this capability, and this is lumière naturelle in Descartes. Lumière naturelle, that means your natural light. So the issue is that. Has the reason this kind of capability or not? Maturidi and Mu'tazila, they say yes, reason has this capability. So without revelation, it has this responsibility because it has this capability. But if you ask Ahl Hadith, they say no, revelation. If there is revelation, you are responsible. If there is no revelation, you are not responsible. But Maturidi and Mu'tazila say no. If there is no revelation, we are again responsible for knowing, for inventing realities, for understanding the basic principles of life. Finally, to give the answer to this last question, the identity discussions is not a good discussion. The reality evaporates within these debates. So I don't like the real or the identity of Ahl Hadith. I don't like the identity of Ahl Ray. This let me remind you the name Abdul Karim Surush. Some of you may know this scholar from Iran. He makes a distinction between identity, Islam of identity, Islam of truth. Islam of identity, Islam of truth. Islam of identity always divides because every single person claims different identities, and every single person is proud of his or her identity, and it divides. But Islam of truth, it combines, it unites. So these entities, in the beginning I told you, Maturidi is being rendered as an entity in Turkey, as an identity in Turkey. I don't support this position. We don't need this kind of identity. We are searching for reality. Reality will shed light on us. So by analyzing your third question, indeed, I gave the answer to second question, I think. So reason has its own nature. It is objective. I don't accept the subjective reason. We cannot call it reason. We cannot call it reason. It is something else. Something else. This is not reason. Maybe this neshun bil ijtihad, there are some mu'allafe qulub, how Umar, the Caliph radiallahu anh, he changed the initiative given to some mushrikun. He abandoned this tradition. He abrogated during the caliphate of Abu Bakr. I don't want to give the whole story here, but you can check in Ta'wilatul Quran, Mu'allafay Qulub, the groups zakat is to be given. The Mu'allafay Qulub, Umar had this initiative, and he changed the practice. They don't, together with the Caliph, they change. You can refer to the verse and its commentary by Maturidi. I think this is enough for an answer.